So before we go any further, I want to explain a little bit about how scenes work in Godot. So I talked about scenes last time. Now a scene you can imagine as a container. So this empty box here, imagine that this box is going to store all of our nodes for our player. So in a moment we're going to create a new scene for the player to add it to our game. So if you imagine this box, it's going to contain everything we need for the player, all the nodes. So for example, our player will have a camera, it'll have a sprite, it'll have a rigid body, and some kind of additional colliders or area 2Ds. So these are all different nodes we can add in Godot. And this is what makes up our player. And so we add it as a player, we add it as a scene, and we add these nodes to our player. What this then lets us do is with our level node, which we made in the last video, so that's our level scene, we can then add our player into the level. So we'll add the player scene to the level scene, and the player itself has all its nodes that make it up as well. And as we go on, we'll create loads of scenes. So we'll make scenes for the coins, scenes for the enemies. And when we make these scenes, we can drag them into our level scene where they can all be playable and interactable with each other. So that's a quick overview of scenes. Now let's actually see them in action. Now before we can get started with adding our player character, we're going to have to import our assets into the game. So we made our assets folder in the last video. So I'm going to go into my own file explorer, and I have the assets here. I'll make these downloadable or accessible from the description. And I'm going to click and drag all of those assets into my assets folder. That imports them, and they're now available to use from within my game. So we're going to start by making our player for our game. So I'm going to go up here to the top, click the plus button to add a new scene. Now over on the left hand side we have our tree scene inspector, and if I click the plus button here to add our first node, it's going to be a character body 2D. And this is a node that Godot has that is perfect. It's a physics body, perfect for characters to be moved by a script, which is great for us. So we add that in. And next we're going to add, so we're going to right click on the character node 2D and add a child for this, which will be a sprite, but an animated sprite 2D, because we're going to add our sprite, which is what our player is going to look like. And we're going to animate this with frames. So we'll create that. Our character body 2D also needs to have a collider. So if I look for a collision shape 2D and create that, then our character is going to be able to collide with things. So this collision shape 2D node is to make sure our character can bump into the environment so that they can walk on things or get hit by things. And our animated sprite 2D is going to be where we actually add what our character looks like. So let's start with that. So over on the right hand side, we have our inspector where we can inspect the properties of different nodes. So for the animated sprite, we want to open up the animation, click on sprite frames, and then new sprite frames. Then if we click on it again, it will open up this animated frames toolbar down here. Now we want to click on this little sort of square shape that looks a bit like a waffle, add frames from sprite sheet. So we click that. Now we want to open the correct path. So you might have to go and open up your assets folder most likely. So you would have to go into your assets and find whatever it is you're looking for. I'm going for these pixel adventure assets and main characters, pink man. And I'm going to select the idle animation for now. Open idle up. Now what we see here is we see the idle image and it's a sprite sheet. Okay, and a sprite sheet is just an image that's made up of different sprites. In this case, all the sprites in this image are for the idle animation of the player character. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sprites. Going horizontally. So we want to change this horizontal value here to 11. And there is only one row in this sprite sheet, so we'll make the vertical value here 1. And now they're all separated into their individual boxes. Now if I click on these, you'll see a number pops up and it starts from 0 and goes all the way up to whatever it goes up to. And this is the order in which our animation will play. So the animation goes from left to right. So if I click on all these from left to right, you can also click and drag and then do add frames. So now that we've added our frames, we can see in the top left here that we have a body for our player has been added. We can actually see them. If I press the F key to focus or center and then scroll in with the mouse wheel, I can also use, I can press the mouse wheel in to pan around the scene. We can see our player's there, but he's looking very blurry. Now one way to fix this is on the right hand side here, when you have animated sprite selected, is to go to texture and then go onto this filter part and select nearest. However, I don't want to have to do this for every sprite that we add to the game, so I'm actually just going to go into the project settings in the top left here, and we are going to go into the textures section and swap linear to nearest, close that, and now our sprite is nice and crisp and clear. Next thing, we still have a warning on our collision shape, and that's because we actually have to add a shape for the collision. So in the inspector for the collision shape, on the right here we see shape. We're going to click on it, and I'm going to choose a capsule shape. Now this is the boundary with which our player can touch things. So I want this to, first of all, actually, I'm going to bring the sprite up to the line so it makes it a bit easier for me. So my sprite, the bottom of my sprite is now standing on this horizontal line. And I'm going to get my collision shape. I want the very bottom point of this collision shape to be aligned with the bottom of my player's feet. I can drag these points to make it a bit thinner, and I can drag this bottom point to make it a bit smaller. So your overall goal is you want the very bottom in the end to be aligned with the feet, and you don't want a perfect fit here. This would be frustrating because you see there's actually some points where the character is not drawn. Your character's going to end up bumping into things, sort of invisible walls, if you do something like this, or getting hit by enemies sooner than feels good. Your game's going to feel better if your boundaries are a little bit smaller than the character itself. So with all those pieces added, let's go to our scene tree inspector here, right click on character and rename it to player. So this is our player, and we're going to save this. So you can do scene and save scene, or you can press Ctrl S. So we'll save that. And make sure it's saving in your scenes folder. Mine is, and it's just called player, which is fine, so we'll save that. And now if I hop back to level, I can actually open my scenes folder and drag my player into the level. If I run this, we can see our player sitting in the middle of the screen here, not doing anything though. So let me jump back to the player a wee second. So if we go to the animated sprite 2D, one thing we can do is we can check out our animation. If I click on play, then we can see he's very slowly animating. Now to make that a bit faster, here we've got an FPS value, so that's frames per second. Let's increase that until it feels good. Now I think 20 frames per second is feeling pretty good. A couple of other things I'll do is the animation is called default. I'm going to click on that and rename it to idle. And I'm also going to click this button here, which is an autoplay on load button. So that means when the game loads, this is the default animation that will load. So make sure we save. And if we run our game, we should now see that the player is animated, and he is. He's very small, but he's doing his little idle animation. Cool. But now let's make it so that we can actually control the player, and in Godot that's super easy. So if I go onto the player, and I'm going to come up here, make sure I've got player selected, and we can press attach a new or existing script. So this is the add script button where we can start doing some coding. Or you can right click and press attach script, either is fine. Now, Godot is going to select a basic movement template script for us, which is absolutely perfect for us. It's going to let us get started really quickly with coding our character. Now, first of all, I'm going to select the file path to save this script into, and I'm going to choose my scripts folder and open. So now this script called player.gd will save in my scripts folder, and I will just click create. And there we go. Here's our default template character code from Godot here. Now, I'm not going to go over this at the moment. First of all, let me just run the game and see what happens now. So our character at the moment just falls straight off the screen, and that is because there is no floor for them to actually collide with or stand on. So let's add a quick floor so we can test this movement script out. So if I hop back over to the level scene, so I've selected level, and along the top here, I now also need to select 2D to go back to my 2D view. Remember, you can change between different views up here. So now in my level scene, I'm going to click on level up here and right click and add a child node. I'm going to find a static body 2D. And for the static body 2D, I'm going to right click and add a child for that. So a collision shape 2D. And for the collision shape 2D, I'm going to go to the inspector and add a new world boundary shape. Now, what I want to do, it's added up here. You can see it. I want to move that below the player. So I'm going to select the static body 2D and use this move tool. And then I can click and drag to move this anywhere below the player is fine. So what we've done here real quickly is we've added this static body 2D node, which is just a node that can be collided with. It's on the physics layer in Godot. It just means that the physics of our character is going to interact with the physics of this static body. So in other words, we can stand on it. And we need to make sure we have a collider of some kind so that we can indeed stand on it. So we added a world boundary shape, and what that is if you think of an invisible wall in a video game that stops you from leaving the map, that's basically what this is at the moment. So this horizontal line this long horizontal line extends infinitely along the x-axis at the moment. So if we run our game, our character, there we go, he falls onto that, and we can use the left and right arrow keys to move left and right, and we can use the space key to jump.